All right. I'm very excited to have Nidhi Sinha join us today. We've had many leading scholars and experts who have warned us about the increasing threat of surveillance to our autonomy and democracy. Relentless data collection has increased the likelihood of sensitive information being misused, eroding public trust, and putting our most vulnerable users at risk. So across the United States, surveillance is being used to restrict reproductive rights, enforce abortion bans. Facial recognition technology is being used at airports around the world to enforce restrictions. It's often also weaponized against individuals from marginalized and targeted groups. Resurgence in cyber attacks, global rise of authoritarianism as renewed concerns about privacy, and highlighted the urgent need for increased user protection from surveillance technologies. There are a growing number of documentaries, films advocating for greater transparency, accountability for this invasive technologies. So it was a very timely topic. Is for our monthly AI expert webinars, we reached out to Nidhi Sinha and invited her to discuss her current project, which is highly relevant to these times. And her project is Under Surveillance. It is a documentary about surveillance in San Francisco Bay Area. So excited to have this conversation with you, Nidhi. And again, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Super excited.
For those of you who don't know Nidhi, we've been following her work for a while. She works at the intersection of human rights and technology. She was born and raised in the Bay Area. Nidhi has a degree in math and computer science from NYU. She has been in the center of technology and, more importantly, tech culture from a very young age. Her own intersection of identities has shaped her understanding of the world. At the center of all of her work is a core question of who is being left behind of the conversation and how to bring them in. That gives me goosebumps because that so resonates with our ethos and our mission here. Nidhi is a lover of art, dance, shape, colors, and trees. Her goal is to help build a world of innovation, kindness, and collaboration. So that said, we are again excited to have you here, and I want to ask, what inspired your documentary?
Yeah, so when this documentary first came into conversation, my org, Citizens Privacy Coalition, thought about making a short series of interviews with Palestinian and pro-Palestinian activists. This was a few months after October 7th, so the Free Palestine movement was really kicking into full gear. And I realized that this was an opportunity to talk about surveillance on a much larger scale than just the Palestine movement, where obviously there is quite a lot of surveillance. But I was thinking a lot about how in the conversations I've been having about surveillance and privacy, experts and statistics are kind of everything that we rely on. But where are the stories about everyone who's actually being harmed? The activists, the immigrants, the people of color, the workers, the women. Where are their actual stories? Because I was working in policy for quite a few years, and I realized that I had never actually asked anyone how it felt. So I was really interested in exploring these intersections of surveillance on these different vulnerable groups. And as my bio says, bringing people into the conversation. So I really wanted to find a way to use these stories as a way to amplify a sense of urgency around this larger issue of privacy and mounting surveillance in the United States and across the world, but especially in the US right now.
I'm so glad you did this because it is definitely the need of the hour and it's such a critical topic and it affects all of us, right? And especially people who are most at risk. So thank you for sharing that. Someone did ask, like, what is the name of the documentary? It's Under Surveillance. It is a documentary about surveillance in the San Francisco Bay Area. Can you walk us through your journey and challenges, some of which you've already shared with me personally, but I'd like our audience to learn and hear from you firsthand. What are the challenges you faced during creation of this documentary?
So the journey has been evolving so much since last March. I am in awe of my team and the progress that we have made. We are also pretty much all women and all women of color, which I think is really cool in any space, but especially in the filmmaking space. So that's been really awesome. But One of the biggest changes we had to make was the Trump administration came into office, and quite a few local politics. We have a new mayor in San Francisco. Oakland has a new mayor as well as of last week. How are we going to respond to these things? So we've been having a lot of conversations about what is important and who is especially vulnerable right now and how to really capture that. So one of the biggest challenges we had at the beginning of the documentary was just finding the right people. You need to find someone who is under surveillance, knows that they're under surveillance, and can talk about it to some extent. And also building that trust with these people of, hi, we've never met. Could you please share your really difficult story with me? And I'm going to have a camera in your face. Another thing that has been really difficult is the scope of the documentary. Surveillance is such a murky network, I am learning. Every single person I have ever talked to about this film has given me 5 ideas for a different feature film about surveillance because there is just so much happening. And I don't think that any of us really know how extensive it is. I don't think any of us can be an expert on surveillance at this point. There's just too much going on. And probably the worst challenge that I've been having with this documentary is actually a really difficult conversation I had to have last night, and one that I'm going to continue having, is the safety of the people we're filming. We are living in a reality in the United States where if you are being outspoken about certain issues, especially related to Palestine, you might just get picked up off the street and none of us will ever know where you are again. And that is terrifying. And I am lucky enough to have been working with these activists for a year now. So when they're feeling these things, they just text me and say, can I call you? And can we just cry about it for a second? And we did cry about it. And we were like, well, what do you want us to do? I'm still shoving a camera in your face and you are anonymous, but what should we do if something happens? And I think it's a horrible question to ask. It's a horrible thing to talk about. And I am in awe of the bravery of the people who are being filmed right now. I mean, the person I talked to last night was like, if something happens to me, you need to make sure this film gets out there. And that's a lot of trust to place in someone. Um, and I'm really trying to honor that trust, but definitely like safety has been the biggest challenge with this documentary. It's something that I think we're always talking through, we're always thinking through, we are constantly imagining, okay, in this scenario, what are we going to do? How are we going to respond? Because these are real people. These aren't just experts telling us the statistics of how many activists are being disappeared. It's the activists themselves being like, I think this might happen to me and I don't know what I'll do if it does. So yeah.
Can I just say, like, I have so much admiration and respect for you and your team. To your point, there are so many people who talk about these issues, and we know, like the experts who are platformed, who talk about it, but they really don't have any skin in the game. They can give a speech and go away to where the privileged spaces they came from, right? The gated communities or in somewhere, in some prestige. They're not in the thick of it. They're not in the communities. They're not at risk. They're not risking anything. But you all are risking your life, your freedom, your literally like everything you have on this. So I have to say, I mean, it takes a lot of courage and bravery, and just want you to know we see you and we hear you and we support you 100%. I'm so glad we were able to give a platform to you, and happy to continue to support you because I do feel there seems to be this misconception for folks that this is not going to happen to us. We are okay, but you are right there on the front lines doing the work so the rest of us can stay safe. So we obviously owe you a lot of gratitude. We definitely are grateful for everything that you do. And the crying space, I've been in, I know the feeling, and I've know how having these spaces for people to just grieve is so important, but then you pick yourself up and keep moving forward. I feel like that is the core piece. And I love that you're bringing in so much like, okay, we have to, yes, there are challenges, but we'll pick each other up and just, we'll keep moving forward. And I just love the ethos and just the determination, despite all odds. We're not going to let anybody stop us. And that's exactly what we need right now, that bravery, that courage. So again, thank you for everything you do. I'm just in awe. Um, let's talk about the paradox of San Francisco Bay Area specifically. Now, San Francisco has been the epicenter of tech, where innovation happens. And for the longest time, when I have conversations with people who haven't worked in the Silicon Valley like I have or you have, and who are outside of the Bay Area, so they don't understand what the culture is like, and they are always surprised that these are supposed to be liberals and these are supposed to be the good guys, and yet so many of these surveillance technologies are headquartered in the Bay Area. How did you, that aspect, like, how did you reconcile that? Like, how did that form your view, like, aspect inform the creation of your documentary?
Yeah, as someone who grew up in the tech world and was pretty much brought up to just assume I was going to end up working in tech, and I did not have any better ideas than that, so I did end up working in tech.
Yeah.
Um, it's a huge aspect of the film. I mean, there's this huge disconnect in the Bay Area right now between tech workers and every other person who lives here. And I think that that's something that's really interesting because for the purposes of this film, we're diving into the people who are being harmed by this technology, but we're also in the place where the technology is being created. And, it's not just the surveillance tech that's being created here. So San Francisco is the first place that let you hop in a Waymo. I remember being on the wait list to drive a Waymo for the first time. And I'm pretty sure it's still not in most other cities, but we are this testing ground for all of these different technologies. And what does that do to the people who are here? So one of the things that they make you think about when you're making a film is who your audience is. And I've been saying that this film is for everyday people, but I've also been investigating what that language means because my gut instinct, what I've brought up to believe, is that an everyday person is someone who works in tech, keeps their head down, doesn't talk about politics, and doesn't get themselves involved in these issues. But that's not the reality of what's happening here. I mean, right outside my street, we have a really big issue with homelessness and drug abuse, and it's heartbreaking and it's hard. And I sit, in my little home with all of the little goodies I have, and like San Francisco is also my playground to a certain extent. So I've been thinking a lot about how to kind of center the actual people who live in the Bay Area where it's not their playground and where they are struggling and where there are hardships. And also kind of remind the tech workers, because there are a lot of us in the Bay Area, that, hey, we are complicit in what's going on here. We're complicit in the gentrification. We're complicit in the harmful technology that's being pushed out here, all over the US, all the way in Gaza. Like, we're doing it here, actually. So kind of trying to bridge the gap between these two audiences, and kind of make people feel like they have skin in the game, as you were saying. You think that these issues aren't going to impact you, but at the end of the day, that surveillance camera that's up on the street is still recording you. You're just not their target today. We don't know in 6 months who's the target. Yeah.
Well said, very well said. Do you feel like now with these technologies, are you seeing a shift in that um, attitude or perception of Silicon Valley? Because to your point, even I got my first job in Silicon Valley, worked there for decades, and I was a blogger. So I've always been fascinated and curious about technology. It's only when you start learning more and more, and the people who are raising awareness, who are concerned about it, tend to be people who have worked for a long time in technologies, right? Because you know how it works and you know what you can see beyond the hype. So do you feel like now with these technologies taking forefront and people, the awareness is greater with documentaries like yourself, and also given the current politics and also the involvement of Silicon Valley elites in the current politics? I mean, too much, right? Too much involvement. Do you feel like that is shifting the view of the Silicon Valley as this epicenter of liberal politics? Or like, how is it shifting their perception and reputation?
This is actually something that is so fascinating to me. When someone says Bay Area, we all think liberal Mecca, and when someone says Silicon Valley, we all think Republican techno oligarch. But these are geographically the exact same place. I mean, Oakland is a historic place of like resistance. I mean, that's like the birthing grounds of the Black Panthers. And San Francisco has roots in communism in one of our most, popular districts. But these are also still like the headquarters of a lot of big tech companies. And I think that that's interesting when you actually dive into the local politics of what's happening in the Bay Area. We're not that liberal, to be honest. Last March, this is a really good case study, actually. Last March, San Francisco residents voted for Prop E, which was this proposition that increased funding for surveillance tech and decreased police oversight. And we can have conversations about like the role that like corporate lobbying or whatever had in the game, and maybe grassroots organizations could have done more. But at the end of the day, the residents did vote for it. And actually, like overwhelmingly, a majority of them voted for Prop E. And we're seeing the fallout of that happen in real time right now. In one of our districts, the Mission District, there has been a 24/7 surveillance van installed at one of our most popular transit hubs. So it's this van that is always recording. There is this large surveillance tower that is just towering over the entire transit hub. And there are a bunch of police officers just constantly monitoring the space. And it is really important to call out that this is in a neighborhood that is historically Hispanic and historically working class. So there's a lot of dynamics at play there. But technically, we all did vote for it. So I've been reconciling this idea that there's two images of the Bay Area, and this film is kind of trying to bridge that gap of showing like, hey, there is all of this tech happening and there is all of this stuff pushing back against all of the activism that is happening in the Bay. It is still a really vibrant place for organizing. But that doesn't really mean that the general public or the politicians are that happy about it either. So we're trying to really recenter the people who are being harmed and emphasize that this is something that is impacting everybody here.
I could not agree more with what you said. And I love, again, the work you're doing. It's so critically important that people understand beyond the big headlines, right? Because media is so complicit in painting this picture. And also because these social media platforms, you can use that to burnish your reputation. We lose sight of the people who are actually running these companies, what the politics are, and the local politics. It's just whatever they put out on social media, right? Who has a dominant voice. So I completely understand. I used to live in the Bay Area and then I lived in Oakland, but it was shocking to me how much just the gentrification of even the most historic um, neighborhoods, and people who are gentrifying not even being aware of they are complicit or they are part of the problem themselves. And it's just like that disconnect was really shocking to me. But moving on, I have so many questions for you. Your organization, Citizens Privacy Coalition, can you talk about the work that they do? And I do have a follow-up question, but I'll wait.
Sure. So Citizens Privacy Coalition is a grassroots community organization that was founded in 2021. We are focused on anti-surveillance and data privacy education and advocacy efforts. We are always centering the people who need these resources and this activism. So we host free, accessible educational workshops about data privacy related to specific issues, whether that's installing a VPN or protest security. We also have an Instagram account at Citizens Privacy Coalition where we post infographics about different issues related to privacy and surveillance that are happening on the local level. And of course, we are working on this film as probably our biggest push to date. And we do engage in advocacy across the Bay with groups like Tech Equity, ACLU, EFF, just to push for things for policy on both the local and the state level.
Amazing. Uh, you, so one of the pieces I was most interested in hearing about is we have all of these different formats. We talk about there are zines, you could do text-based, like which is zines and text-based media. Then you have digital social media, different formats, reels, and so forth. But can you talk about documentaries and films and the role of films in advocacy for these kind of critical issues?
Yes, this has been pretty much all I've been thinking about for the past year. I have been really interested in the idea of using film as this medium to go very deep into an issue and to follow a character, follow a person through this storyline. And you have to sit there and watch the whole thing. We're living in an attention economy, as everyone's latest favorite buzzword is going. You watch the 30-second Instagram reel, or you swipe on like a 3-post carousel infographic. And that only holds your attention for so long before now you're watching the next 30-second video. How much of this information is really sinking in our brains right now? And I've been exploring this idea of what happens if we do have to sit down and deal with this uncomfortable truth and really just immerse ourselves in a world that people can't just log off of quite as easily. We're living in really horrible times right now. I won't sugarcoat that. But I think that documentary is an opportunity to bear witness to the people who are fighting the fight, resisting, and also just being harmed. Like, I think this is a good opportunity to just show that it happened and that we were there and that we cared enough to film it. The first time I ever got interested in the power of what a film could do is actually there's this Hindi film called Rang De Basanti, which was not a documentary. It was a drama, but it was like one of those socio-political dramas where they kind of talk about the history of Indians fighting back against British colonialism, but then also in present day, this released in like 2006, present day student protesting against some stuff that the Indian Army was doing. And what was really fascinating to me about this film was that when it came out, there actually was a noted spike in student protesting across India. And India's huge, by the way, like huge. There's a lot of people there. And there was a noticeable spike when this film came out. People were enraged at the corruption and the all of the injustices happening, and they saw this film and they walked out of it saying, I'm mad and I see what's happening. And not only do I see what's happening and I'm mad, I'm remembering enough of this and holding on to enough of this to do something about it. And that was fascinating to me. And there's still, there's films in the US, like The Encampments just came out, which I highly encourage everyone to go watch if you can find a Showtime near you. I think that these are really important things happening. How do we get people to hold on to their anger long enough to do something? So I'm been exploring how this film can really propel people to take action and what needs to be done, because I don't want people to just watch this and go, oh, well, that's unfortunate. Time to go back to reality. I mean, this is the reality. This is our reality now. So we all need to start playing a bigger role in it.
I like everything that you just said. It's one is just these are horrible times. I cannot agree more because holding on to people's attention, right? Getting them to engage deeply, which is one of the reasons we don't allow, like, heavily discourage use of AI note takers, because we do want to be a space where people critically engage with each other. That if you're devoting even 40 minutes, let's do it. Like, just like engage with this person's, the guest speaker's expertise and learn and walk away with resources and do something in your own community that makes a difference, right? You can't do it with like just the, all of those petty little quotes that people put out there or things which are just like so surface level. Because you're right, because we have been programmed and social media is programming us to act a certain way because there's so much content. You can't possibly consume all of that content. And now we have AI slop on top of it. So people are just like skimming, and when people post just headlines and react to just headlines, you can see that they're not engaging with what was said, what was written, which is very important. So I completely hear you. And documentaries are no longer um, commitment, but they are so worthwhile because to your point, a powerful documentary can really change things. And I personally, I love documentaries. And my challenge is sometimes that they can get heavy though, because if every documentary makes you want to go out and do something, the challenge is there are so many issues like where do you prioritize? But I love that you want people to be, you know, energized. That's exactly what we should be doing. No more of that escapism. We all need that a little bit, like take a break and all of that and do something frivolous and watch something or do something that's fun. But also, we do need to more deeply engage with these issues. And you're making it easier for people to do that. So I really respect and admire that. I can't say that enough. So most important question, where can we watch your documentary? And are there, I'll just add one more question I just thought of this. Are there platforms which you recommend where we can view these documentaries that are being, friendly to you and welcoming you to screen your work?
So for my documentary, we are still in progress. We won't be complete until next spring of 2026. But in the meantime, we have created a sample which follows one of our activists as they go to a protest and they encounter a drone, and then the fallout from that, so to speak. So we are beginning to screen our sample locally in the Bay Area. We're partnering with different groups, trying to find accessible venues. We're trying to make sure this is free for everyone who comes to attend, or at the very least low cost. We are looking for partners to co-host screenings both in the Bay and out of the Bay. So if anyone really wants to watch this documentary, or at least the sample of what we have so far, let me know and let's make something happen. To our point about what do we do after we watch a film like this, the sample is only like 10 minutes long, so we're planning on pairing it with panel discussions, Q&As, digital security trainings, just whatever's relevant to the org that we're in or the city that we're in. Yeah, and then I don't know where this film will be once it comes out in spring 2026. We will all find that out together. We're a little bit, it's a little bit ahead of the time right now. As for other platforms, I feel like every documentary I see is just all over the place. I know Max has quite a few documentaries. I think Netflix has Coded Bias, which I highly recommend. The encampments, which I mentioned earlier, is still trying to find a distribution plan. So support them wherever you can find them, because this is all part of their push to actually get like a major distributor so that it's easier for all of us to watch the film. But yeah.
Amazing. How can our audience support your work?
So right now, the best way to support our work is to get it out there, like amplify it to your audiences and your networks. We just launched our newsletter where I will be posting fun behind the scenes content, updates on the progress of the film, and also information about screenings, both for our local screenings with our sample right now, and as the film continues to progress, how we keep showcasing the work. And of course, when it's finally done, we have to find a way to tell all of you that it's done. So our newsletter, we also have an Instagram page where I post content about the film as well and just general updates, but the newsletter goes more in depth about things. We're also in the midst of gathering funding. We had a crowdfunding campaign last fall where we were able to create our current sample and continue filming, but we really need to get more funding so that we can keep doing this work and cover these people in depth and give these stories really the time and the care that they deserve. This is not like a one-day situation. We're following some of these people for quite a few months, if I'm being honest. So we are going to soon post a fundraising link within the next few days, but if you or your organization is interested in sponsoring or coming on as a partner, please reach out to me and we can talk about it, because it'd be really nice to have some larger scale support. But, yeah.
We have a few people who are already interested.
Oh,
I will make sure. Yes, Mara Hicks, I'm a big hero of mine, personally, professionally, every way possible. Incredible. We had their book also at one program inequality. I think. Oh, yes, last month. So they are definitely interested. I will share with you. There's one more. There are a few people who are interested. Well, thank you all so much for the support. Fitzpatrick, Joyce Fitzpatrick is interested. I'm just going through. Yeah, one is Claudia is with Calling Up Justice. We'd be happy to host a digital watch party. Yes, yes, and yes. Yeah, I will compile all of these, send it over to you,
Awesome.
and I hope something very good happens from it. And we would love to also host a digital screening with you and see how we can help your fundraising goals for sure. Folks, if one of the volunteers can please repost link to Nidhi's newsletter, really appreciate it. And this is a great way for you all to stay in touch with Nidhi, and Nidhi can keep you posted on different ways of engaging.
Yes, definitely. And thank you all so much for your interest. Oh my gosh, this is so exciting. I will be contacting anyone who said I could contact them. So I am looking forward to the collaboration.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming. Before we go into the Q&A, I can tell you how much I respect. Again, we all are in awe of your bravery, your courage, and your talent. The fact that you're using your talent and your expertise in so many amazing ways. There are many ways to make a living, but the fact you want to use your powers for good, which is going to benefit all of us, keep all of us safe, is truly incredible. So thank you so much again for joining us today.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.